Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on Morning Markets from True Potential. Today, we'll just look back at equity market performance, focus in more on the bond market again, just to discuss a little bit of the trends that we're seeing there. So equity markets overall yesterday did finish in positive territory, but that does mask a bit of the volatility that we're seeing both through time as the day evolved, but also within sectors. So if we look back at just how equity markets in the main opened yesterday, opened weaker and then traded better over the course of the day. Within equity markets, seeing that rotation that has been evident at times over the past number of months, that rotation towards more of those value or economically sensitive areas of the market. So seeing good performance coming through from energy, financials, industrials, and the financials point really plays into what's been happening in the bond market, and we'll come on and talk about that again in just a moment or two. Looking through some reports today, thinking about what market commentators are suggesting was the driver of that improvement again in sentiment over the course of the day, very much being attributed to Jerome Powell, the second day of his testimony. But really, when you look into it, he didn't say anything different yesterday as he said the previous day, so it's hard to sort of attribute that as being one of those factors. Thinking about then other things that were about, Johnson & Johnson yesterday got approval for their COVID-19 vaccine. That's an important one. It brings the third one that's got approval in the US, but more importantly here it's a single dose administration, but also it doesn't have to be stored at the ultra low temperatures. It can be just stored in a fridge, so easier to transport, easier to distribute. So that could actually help speed up the vaccination program as that comes online as well. I think bond markets then, just looking at those, they continue really to be the key focus of attention, and in particular sovereign bond markets. We've touched there just how yields have consistently been moving up over the course of the year, but really has accelerated much more through the month of February. And that trend was again evident to an extent yesterday, where in the US we did see the US 10-year trade through 140, hitting a high of 143. But then going back to what we were discussing a moment or two ago, being attributed to Powell's testimony being a bit dovish in the outlook, then that saw yields come back in to sort of close the day around 137. Just looking at how that's played out across the yield curve, so across the various different maturity spectrums, what we can see there is more movement at the longer end, so the yield curve continues to steepen. That is historically been very positive for financials, not surprising then to see them being one of the stronger performing sectors in the equity market yesterday. The other thing just to touch on in sovereign bond markets, not just a US phenomena that we're looking at here, it is across the globe what they're seeing sovereign bond yields increase at this point in time. One market to focus in on, just for a little bit of reference, Australia, through this period of dealing with COVID-19 and the economic implications, they have set a yield target for their 3-year yield at 10 basis points. Really interesting to see what's happening there, where the market keeps pushing it above that 10 basis points level. We see the central bank having to intervene to bring that rate back down. They've had to intervene twice this week as that yield has moved away. So an interesting microcosm, if you will, of what happens when one sets a yield target. You really have to step in and defend it, but it gives the market something to push against as well. I think the other thing just to focus in on is, we've discussed how bond markets influence equity markets in terms of the valuation, how rising nominal yields, rising real yields have implications for valuations, particularly for growth stocks, those with longer duration cash flows. The other side of it is rising bond yields do signal a positive economic environment, a positive, albeit gradual, increase in inflation as well. And so it should be, I suppose, remembered in that context that is typically supportive of equity markets as well, but it is supportive of rotation within equity markets, and that is certainly what we're seeing today. Going back to one of our points yesterday, it's then very important to think about how one structures a portfolio, and how one has exposures to these different trends within a multi-asset solution to enable to navigate through what is a volatile period that we're seeing in the equity market, but also within the bond complex as well. And I just wanted to take a little bit of a step back and think about some of those factors that we've been looking at to get an indication of what's influencing sentiment. And clearly, over the course of the past 6 to 9 months, that has evolved, very much looking at COVID-19, infection rates, hospitalisation rates, and then the vaccine rollout, thinking about economic momentum, how would lockdowns be eased, how would momentum come back into the economies, looking at fiscal and monetary support. A bit where we are today, however, the questions are a little bit different. Now it's very much about that rate of economic improvement. How does that lead to inflation in the backdrop as a result of economic improvement? And also just thinking about, do we require the same level of fiscal support or fiscal stimulus that we did 12 months ago? All things that the market is grappling with, all things that are influencing sentiment in the market. Hence why we're seeing this level of volatility both in equity and in bond markets. I'll leave it there for today, but do subscribe on our YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Many thanks. Bye.
Subscribing to True Potential YouTube channel is quick and easy. Simply go to your YouTube app on your phone, type in True Potential and press the red subscribe option. You'll then be notified as and when new videos are released.